Hey, this is Ciderhelm, and this is an informal guide to expert Deepstrike mines. Deepstrike mines is the most difficult Tier 2 dungeon and should only be attempted by competent players. There are 2 significant DPS checks and 2 significant healing checks. If possible, Deepstrike mines should be attempted by a party that includes at least 1 cleric healer and 1 chloromancer. Additionally, this instance will be significantly easier if you have a warrior tank with both a Void Knight tanking spec and a Paragon tanking spec. Though not necessary, these will be helpful on several encounters. The party should also have a Mortal Strike healing reduction debuff available, and should not comprise heavily of melee. In this video, we only had 1 full healer. This caused significant issues on Plutonia, the final boss, when that healer was CC'd. I strongly recommend making sure you have 2 strong tank healers before beginning this run. As with all of these guides, I will inform you of which encounters have DPS timers. If they do not have DPS timers, you can stack additional healers or readjust your party as necessary. While we do kill these bosses somewhat quickly, these strategies worked when we were first progressing through these instances and were heavily undergeared. Finally, if you enjoy this guide, please subscribe to this channel. The first encounter in Deepstrike mines is Overseer Marcus. For fair warning, we've only seen this encounter work correctly a single time, and the intended version of this encounter may have changed since then. At the beginning of the Overseer Marcus encounter, the party should burn down the adds around him. After this, the party should DPS Overseer Marcus. When we've seen him work in the past, he split into 3 mobs that needed to be brought down at about the same time. In this video, he casts a spell that should trigger this, but nothing happens. However, his single target tank damage ramps up dramatically, and both the healers and tanks should pay attention to this. In the current version of Overseer Marcus, you don't have too much to worry about. Burn through him and continue through the instance. This encounter does not have a DPS timer. Grigory Kreslov is the second boss you'll encounter in Deepstrike mines. This is a caster who will deal significant damage to the tank throughout the encounter. Though I continue with my normal Paladin Warlord build, an undergeared warrior tank should use Void Knight on this encounter. The main ability to watch out for on Kreslov is Death Blast. This is a long cast that must be interrupted or it will kill the tank. Additionally, Kreslov will occasionally summon an add to protect him. This add should be picked up by the tank and off-tanked until the second phase of the encounter. The second phase begins when Kreslov goes immune and summons 3 adds who stay channeled on him. During this phase, he will no longer cast Death Blast. DPS should kill the summoned add if it's up, then work on each of the 3 casters. There are 2 packs of trash mobs near Kreslov's platform. Your party should try to avoid getting too far behind the mobs to avoid pulling this trash. Additionally, party members should avoid using Treon's incredibly awful tab targeting system. Finally, party members with pets should pay attention to their pets to avoid pulling the trash. Once all 3 channeled adds are down, Kreslov will immediately begin casting Death Blast. Watch out for Death Blast and the summoned add, and repeat these phases and you'll make it through the encounter. The third encounter in Deepstrike Mines is Bonehew the Thunderer. This encounter has a large number of knockbacks, and it is highly recommended that warriors, both tank and DPS, use Paragon specs for knockback immunity. Bonehew has several abilities. The first and most important ability will occur when he runs to the outer edge of his platform and smashes the ground in a cone across from him. Any player who is hit by this cone will take significant damage and be knocked back. Players who are knocked back can be knocked over the edge of the platform. In this event, they can occasionally aggro packs of mobs on the lower floor, which will wipe the party. To deal with this smash, Bonehew should be tanked stationary in the middle of the room. This will cause him to take longer to the run to the edge, and the moment he begins running, party members will know that he is about to smash the room. Normally, Bonehew will do frequent knockbacks to melee. A tank who is vulnerable to knockbacks will be frequently knocked back, so party members should be able to identify the difference between Bonehew running to the edge of the platform for a smash, or the tank getting knocked back and Bonehew running back to the tank. When Bonehew moves to the edge, party members have two priorities. The first priority is getting near crates or other objects to avoid being knocked over the edge of the platform. Secondarily, but still very important, is attempting to avoid the cone altogether. Focusing on not getting knocked off the platform is important because it's usually the fall that kills you, not the hit, and you can wipe your party from additional adds. Bonehew will cast stuns on players and will also place a dot on a player that damages them and everyone around them. Melee should pay close attention to this. At 50%, Bonehew will break into two adds. Both of these adds have the same abilities as his original form. This means you'll be dealing with 2 frontal cone smashes, 2 knockbacks, 2 stuns, and 2 dots. Keep in mind that the adds can go to opposing corners to perform their smash, so positioning is trickier while both are up. This is the most difficult part of the encounter, and you'll need to burn down one of these as quickly as possible. This encounter does not have a DPS timer. Gatekeeper Kalida is the 4th boss of Deepstrike Mines. This encounter has the highest healing and DPS requirements of any 5-man encounter in Rift. If possible, you should have a Void Knight tank in addition to a Mortal Strike healing reduction available within the party. This encounter is very unfriendly to melee. Gatekeeper Kalida cycles through 4 different phases. The order of these phases are Earth, then Fire, then Water, then Air. A buff on him will appear before you pull him, so you can choose which phase to begin in. We usually begin with Earth. During each of the phases, Kalida will throw 2 elemental crystals on random party members and use abilities associated with the element. This crystal deals damage on impact and knocks back, but they do have a travel time, so range can move away from them if they're targeted. During the Earth phase, 2 crystals he will summon will heal him over a long period of time. This heal is extremely significant. While Earth crystals have relatively low health, we've found that the ramp-up time associated with killing them, in addition to the necessity of keeping Mortal Strike active on Kalida during the heal, made it better to ignore the Earth crystals in favor of continuing hard DPS on Kalida. Earth crystals will make or break your party. They can heal up to 40% of his health, and the party that cannot meet this DPS requirement will either need to exchange a healer for a DPS, or find other ways to improve their DPS. Keep in mind that damage over the course of all phases is equally important to bringing Kalida down. During Earth phase, Kalida will occasionally stun the tank. This is relatively minor, but it can affect the pull. During the Fire phase, Kalida will summon 2 fire crystals. If these are dropped on melee, DPS should immediately move away unless the Earth crystals are still actively healing Kalida and the healing debuff needs to stay up. In this video, we do not have a Chloromancer in the party and we have several melee DPS, so we lose out on a large chunk of DPS potential. With the Chloromancer, Radiant Spores can sometimes keep melee DPS in the fight throughout the phase and throughout Fire Crystal explosions. In our strategy, all of our players at range stay grouped up, and when a fire crystal is cast, they run to the ramp on the other side of the room. After several seconds, the fire crystal will deal massive damage to players within a fairly significant range, so make sure you move far enough away. Kalida will also cast Fire Blast on the tank during this phase, followed by a very powerful frontal attack. This is the largest burst in the encounter, and the Fire Blast will deal significant damage to all players near the tank. The Water phase is the easiest. Water crystals have a small pulsing AoE and will root players in the party. Very little damage occurs during this phase. The Air phase brings crystals that will cause a long duration stun after several seconds. These are easy to deal with, as healers can break line of sight. There is a significant tank damage from lightning spells during this phase. Additionally, DPS can drop down during this phase to air crystal stuns. After the Air phase, you begin again on Earth. Hopefully DPS has brought him down far enough that the heal will not bring him back to full health. If you can survive 1 cycle and bring his health down more than he heals for, you will finish this encounter. Daikromm is the 5th boss in Deepstrike Mines. This is also one of the easiest and can be made even easier if you have a Paragon tank available. Daikromm is pulled from one end of a cross-shaped hall. During this encounter, lasers will float around the hallways, but the center of the hallway will remain free of these lasers. These lasers are very dangerous and will begin tracking people near them, dealing massive AoE damage. The space your party has is limited, and this is made more limited due to a knockback he frequently casts on nearby players. For this encounter, I keep him near a corner so the melee will be knocked back into the opposite corner and not into one of the hallways. Range stay at the opposite corner throughout the encounter. Players that are knocked back are also rooted and should be dispelled if possible. If your tank is not knockback immune, you will want to position Daikromm on one side of the center with the tank and melee on the inside of the square and Daikromm on the outside edge. In other words, the tank should be knocked to the other side of the safe square. When knocked back, the tank should be dispelled from the root, then be careful and reposition him in the same way on the opposite side. Alternate back and forth and you'll have the encounter. This encounter has no DPS timer. Caretaker Archanis is the 6th boss in Deepstrike Mines. Archanis is a DPS check. Archanis will occasionally charge players. For this reason, the entire party should be grouped up on him. At 75%, 50%, and 25%, Archanis will become immune and begin channeling a crystal. This crystal must be burned down before the channeling ends or the party will wipe. Additionally, 3 adds will be summoned at the beginning of this channel, and these should be picked up by the tank. All players, including healers, should contribute to killing the crystal. At 50%, Archanis will channel the crystal faster than he did at 75%, so it must be killed more quickly. At 25%, he will summon it even faster. As soon as the crystal is killed, the party should immediately move back onto Archanis and should focus on killing and CCing the adds. This is the most dangerous time for tank damage. Once 2 crystals have been killed, the 2 remaining crystals may be neighboring each other on one side of the room. If this is the case, moving Archanis and the group in between the 2 may buy you an extra second or 2 of DPS on the crystal once it becomes vulnerable. Plutonis is the final encounter in Deepstrike Mines. This boss deals significant damage to the tank, requires constant movement, and frequently uses crowd control. For this reason, it is strongly recommended that your party have at least 2 full healers. In this video, we have a poor party composition. If you're light on healing, Paragon tanking is unusually strong in this encounter due to the uptime of Bend Like the Reed in relation to how often you're actually in melee range. Plutonis will frequently raise walls in random locations around his platform. Within seconds, he will knock everyone in the party away from him. If players in the party are close enough to a wall, they will be knocked into the wall and be safe. If they are too close to the edge, they can ricochet off the wall and into the outer edges of the room, where roaming lasers will have a high chance to kill them before they can get back in. Finally, if players do not move and get close enough to the wall in time, they can be knocked over the wall. After a few seconds, lightning will cross between opposing walls, starting from purple crystals positioned on each wall. Players need to pay very close attention to their positioning to avoid getting hit by this lightning. There are some visual tricks to help you with this. First, the lightning never crosses over the red crystals on the inner ring of his platform. Stay on these pie slices and you'll be okay. Second, if you make sure you get knocked back to the edge of a wall, you'll be able to move out into the open space between walls, and lightning cannot cross the room here. Occasionally he summons walls around the entire outer ring, and this is not possible. Even though I have knockback immunity, I still run to the outer edge during each knockback phase because he deals very high AoE damage in a large radius around him. This is also the reason I keep him in the middle, as it keeps him from hitting any segment of the wall with his AoE, and also gives all players an equal running distance to reach a wall segment in the moments before the knockback. As the channel for his AoE ends and the lightning subsides, the tank should be running back in to get in range. While out of range, Plutonis will channel a damaging spell on the tank. This does not seem very significant. In the past, he has pulled the tank in if he was out of melee range, though I did not notice this tonight. This encounter is all about tank damage and quickly responding to the walls. There are no DPS timers, so stacking healers is strongly recommended if you need to. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe if you enjoyed it, and feel free to visit us on www.eventideguild.com if you have any questions.